contractors, we're always trying to market to the future clients.
You want to have the freedom to pick and choose your clients. On the other side, you should be like very committed to your clients.
So have you ever like had a client that like out of nowhere they just left you? Like you were doing good work, you were doing great stuff, and then they out of nowhere they're like, "Oh, sorry, we're using another guy." Have you ever had that experience?
I think I didn't, but most likely whenever a client kind of doesn't pay the next invoice, it's most likely that.
So yeah, okay. So when they stop paying, I guess they go away for you. So I guess the point I'm making here is, so I've had clients in the past where they've just disappeared. They've just gone to a different person to provide the services. And I used to wonder, why the heck did they do it? Is it the loyalty? I would actually get offended. I'd be like, why did they not appreciate the value I gave them? How dare they? How dare they go on to somebody else? So yesterday, I was listening to this kind of marketing guru giving a talk about the power of marketing, and within that talk, it was interesting because he said that a lot of us are.
Guy?
So that guy is David Grant. He's kind of a local marketing guru here in St. Petersburg. Very briefly got to meet him. I didn't really get to meet the guy too much, but he. So his whole thing was that we as creative contractors, we're always trying to market to the future clients, right? We're always giving promises. So when you land on our websites, we're like, let me make your next $1 million video, or I'm going to make the next breathtaking website for you. But we don't celebrate the clients we already have. We don't fully recognize that people are already supporting you. They've already patted you on the back and helped you, but we don't celebrate them because we get in this marketing mode that we're too outward leaning. We're too like trying to get the better, bigger fish, where we don't appreciate the fish we already have. We don't appreciate the people that helped us get here. And I thought that was really powerful. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it is kind of true, but I'm like, on the one side, I want to like fight back and be like, oh yeah, the client that you have, you always have to add new clients so that you keep growing, and there's just a timeline on a client. But also I see how that is like kind of toxic. So I'm like, is it really like that? I'm like, should it be more, like, hey, you're the best client right now. You know what I mean? And then I'm seeming, I don't know. It's an interesting take. And I'm just like, yeah, what was your takeaway from that? Because I'm kind of open about it.
Well, what's interesting about it is I looked back in like kind of my career and what was the things that worked, right? What led to more stuff? What led to the gold? And for me, it was word of mouth. It was always word of mouth. It was never like some social media post. It was never this podcast. It wasn't even going to a networking event and meeting someone. What always led to the gold was word of mouth of someone saying, hey, I know this guy. He does cool stuff. He does it for a reasonable price. And then they reach out. And that's big, right? Like, and how do you get that word of mouth? Well, you get it by getting someone to trust you. And how do you get someone to trust you? Well, you celebrate them. You engage with them. You say, hey, I recognize you. So what does that look like? I was trying to think of that. There's one thing, for example, for the last 3 years, I've always said I was going to do, and I've never done. And this may be the one resolution that I'm like, nope, we got to do it this year. Is sending a holiday card, like at the end of the day, to like have a happy holiday.
Yeah, it's one of those classics, It's so simple, so easy. You do it like for the family, but your clients who actually spent money with you, where the family is like, he's fine. He gives me the friends discount, It's
exactly.
like, there we send it, but by the people who kind of like matter financially, we don't. It's funny.
Yeah, we don't. Exactly. And so that's something I'd like to do, because that's like celebrating. That's like you turning around and be like, you know what, man, thank you. I recognize you, dude. And, I think there's other ways of doing this too. So for me, the one thing I've started to do this last year, which has been big, is reaching out to clients and being like, hey, I do checkups on websites. Websites get, and these are people that aren't on maintenance contracts. So for people out there like, oh, we'll just get them on a maintenance contract. Some clients don't want to pay for a month-to-month thing. I'm sure you've ran into that, where once you start to talk about a month-to-month thing, they're like, no. And
it's nobody wants to be on a retainer or a subscription. We all try to figure out, how do I get Netflix for one time,
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a great example. And so like, I think for me, it's been like, oh, well, no, I'm actually checking in. I actually care. Hey, I just want to check in and do a yearly checkup on your website, and I want to make sure things are running right. And I'm not going to sell you on a bunch of things. I'm not going to sell you on a brand new website. I just want to go in and make sure it runs well. And that to them, I think, tells them like, oh man, like I bought an insurance policy with this website. I didn't even realize it, but Sean is literally going to ensure that this website will keep running going forward.
I
And
mean, like on the flip side, it's also easier said than done because we're also busy, you know. And
yeah.
should we put that in the calendar when we get a new project, you know, like a year
Mhm.
from now, you know, add this guy to the invoice or no, like the card sending instead of invoice, you know, first thing my head goes to.
Charge. But well, yeah. I mean, like, I think we've talked in the past where I've created these checklists, and I use those checklists to this day on Notion for that reason, where I've tried to get that process to be quick, right? And I do actually send a calendar alert that repeats every year. So once I make a website, I put a calendar alert that in my Apple Calendar that'll repeat every year going forward until I delete it, saying check in about yearly check in checkup and like see Notion document, and then I'll pull in the Notion document checklist. And the first thing, obviously, I definitely get them to agree to it. So I don't want anyone out there to think that I just do this and then send them an invoice out of the blue, like, hey man, here's some, I did some stuff, pay me. Like I don't do
Some
that.
people do that. I don't know how they get away with it. It's like the weirdest thing ever.
He's so weird, and it would make me so mad if it happened to me. If someone is like, yeah, here's a $300 bill. What?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, so that's been one way that I think has helped people, like, celebrating the stuff I've already done and really help those people. But another thing too, I think that I think you do really well is helping people that have been clients in other places that aren't the thing you do. Like, for example, making connections for them. You have one client that you think should know another client, and you make
Yeah.
that introduction.
I
So
mean, like,
powerful.
it's the easiest thing to do where you're just like, whoa, he helped me, you know? And it's like, it doesn't cost you anything and it just gives you good karma points in a way. So I like doing it. It's the same, like, I sometimes give like unsolicited advice, what is negative in a way, but it's also like positive if it's actionable, you know? Some clients really like it. Like, I can respark fire with an old client if I see them like, oh, they transitioned in doing it themselves. You know, I had just that happened like a while ago, like a month ago. I see a client posting, doing reels and stuff. He found the passion and the fire to just dry it, you know, by himself. I'm like, you go, just make the video shorter so it gets into the short form algorithm because all his videos were like 1:30 and it's not getting picked up by the algorithm. So he does all the work for nothing. And I'm like, hey, easy fix, just make it quicker and faster and you're good, you know? And client loved it, you know. It's like a simple tip that doesn't hurt me and still shows like, hey, I know a thing or two, you know.
Yeah, well, and one thing I think you kind of inferred in what you just said is that you keep track of your clients, and I think
Yeah.
that's big too. I always follow my clients on social media, and not to like stalk them, but to support them, right? Like I want them to see that I'm liking their posts. I don't just want their money. I want them to do well. You know, I have one client right now where I'm excited to release their site where they make these like really cool birds out of PVC pipes and stuff, these colorful birds, and of course I follow them on social media, and I'm liking all their posts now.
I mean, it's like an ex, you know. You want to see how they're doing, if they're better off than you now.
And that is true because it's very true because you will sometimes run into that weird post where they're like, here's our new website. Like,
yeah.
Wait, what?
That's a really big, good website.
But honestly, it's very rare, though. It's very rare because, like, I believe because there's always that connection. If I'm following them, there's already this. But you're right, yeah. But that's the thing. They're not your ex, right? It's more like that you have all these long distance relationships. Is almost how I look at it. Like, there's all these people that they're, they live in Paris, but maybe like for a month out of every year, we're gonna do some cool stuff, and then they're gonna go way back to Paris. Like, I just have all these long distance relationships.
You know how I feel right now? I feel like one of those like speed dating or like relationship gurus, how you pick up clients, you know, it's like, yeah, you have all the irons in the fire, keep them all hot, you know, send out a hi, checking on them. And it's like, I mean, in the end, it is kind of the same thing because like you're trying to have multiple relationships with multiple, clients and just like keep them hot and warm so that they are like maybe converting, and just like, oh no, it's like, yeah, instead of being negative, it's a positive thing because you can have multiple clients and you should have multiple clients unless, you're like monogamy, full-time employee, at that super committed invoice level.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love it. I actually am finding, and I've said this before, I think companies are liking the polygamy of it all. I think they like the fact that
they do.
They don't have to like worry about paying me unemployment. They don't have to worry about HR being mad about something. They don't have to worry about all these things. They like the fact that they could just be like, Sean did bad job, get rid of them today. Like that, like, so people love that. And I know that almost sounds negative to some people, like, oh, so they like it because they can cut us easier. But it's also because it's cheaper. It's also because we're more agile. And there's a weird thing when you have an employee where there's this weird dance where it's about feelings. Then it's about like, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or they have a family and stuff, where as a contractor, people don't feel that. They don't feel that weird stress. So
yeah, they definitely don't feel that. There's no feeling at all.
There's no feelings. There's no feelings.
I mean,
but yeah,
good and bad on both sides, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I think like, when we think about marketing, so to kind of get back to it, like I think that when we think about marketing, I think we need to stop thinking so much about, let's tell everyone what the dream is going to be. Let's like actually get back to a place where, hey, look at this bandwagon of awesome people. Don't you want to be on this bandwagon with all these awesome people? And I think that's the key, because once people see that you celebrate people, it's like a girl seeing that you treat your girlfriend well. They're going to be like, dang, that guy is a good looking guy, because they see that you're treating what you have right now nice. So I think that's the thing is, and I've always said this too on the podcast, of you can always tell how bad someone's going to be when your thing ends with them by how they talk about their ex. And that definitely is in the client world. So if you get a client and they're like, yeah, that last web designer, so stupid. Yeah. And he did so much dumb work and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that may be a red flag then, of like, well, you don't have any allies. You have a bunch of enemies in your past. So what's another enemy?
I mean, like, this could be like the perfect segue into my, feedback creative control segment, because like I had a client with exactly that, where I'm like, the client came to me for a specific solution. I offered them a price, a package, what is a win-win for both of us. They get a cheap deal and I'm getting a fair price for really a fair amount of work that is like automized, so I know what to do, how, and really efficient, so it was a win-win for everybody. After talking to them and the person who referred me to, I hear from the other person who referred me, they're kind of nightmares. So now I'm like, and now it makes sense with all the requests for changes and revisions and the things they want and the micromanagement and the budget that they have. And I'm just like, it makes sense that I got referred, because otherwise they would have done it themselves. How do you deal with clients with trying to micromanage and not willing to give up creative control?
Well, without getting into that topic directly, because we're going to do that as a separate episode, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to jump into this, but I'm going to jump into this a little bit. I'm going to touch on this. So what's interesting is that doesn't seem like a very fair relationship from the beginning, right? If they're in your lane, if they're totally in your lane, and they're not respecting the rules of engagement, they're not respecting the lines that you've put, you've put the boundaries, they're not respecting that. Then they shouldn't be on your team to begin with. I think that's the whole thought is, and the person that referred you, I think also that's worth saying too, is like, don't refer bad people to your friends. Like it's such a weird thing that, like, to
it was
even
also
say,
a different niche, like he's doing a different thing. I was in that niche, so I'm like, it makes sense. So I was not 100% sure, but now it makes a lot of sense.
And so, exactly. So it's funny because like earlier we talked about like, make connections. That's huge, but you can go bad. You can make a wrong connection, a bad connection. I think that's why I always tell like all my friends, I'm always like, I'm only going to refer you good stuff. I'm never going to refer you. And that means I'm going to refer less stuff to you, but it's always going to be quality. So that's what I would tell people too, is if you're going to refer stuff, refer quality stuff, and also give it a good starting place. I can't tell you how many people have referred stuff and they don't do a good transition at all. They're just like, they have the guy reach out of nowhere like, oh, hey, I got your number, and they don't even say who they got the number from or anything. And like that stuff, I'm like, no, like don't do, like, the polite thing to do is always ask your friend or your colleague, be like, hey, I want to refer this guy, is that okay? And then let them say yes, then you refer. It's crazy I have to say that, but like so many people just like will just send crazy people my way, and I'm like, what? Like I'm supposed to make a vehicle wrap for a poop scooping company, and you want it for $150 and you want it today? who the heck referred you? Like, I'm going to go
Yeah.
yell at him right now. I'm going to call him right now. Like, I've had some weird referrals in the past, and I've had some great ones too. But like, yeah, that's the biggest thing is get permission before you refer. Don't ever just throw people's way. It can be overwhelming.
I mean, that makes sense, you know? Yeah. It's very interesting because like we do that like when you work like a part-time or full-time job, you know, it's like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
know a guy, we can hire him, he's a good guy, I can vouch for him, you know. So we usually do that in the regular, like in the service industry, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big thing where it's like you can vouch for somebody and you need to because
Mm-hmm.
like otherwise it looks bad on you, you know, that you
Yeah.
recommended and refer that person. In the freelance world, I forgot about that because you don't really see it as that. You just see it as like, oh, there's free money coming in, but you
Mm-hmm.
forget the part of like you actually have to work with that person, and that is the determining factor. You know, that you have to work with that person, and that might be very painful, maybe worth it, but boy, oh boy, yeah, we
Yeah.
should look out for that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. Definitely something to to keep track of. But to kind of like put a bow on kind of this topic, I think for creatives out there, and I know we always talk about people. We're always talking to an audience that already has clients, people like us, right? Where we have like a
Yeah.
history of clients, but I think this also applies to brand new creatives too, right? Is instead of reaching out being like, I can do all these things, I can do all these things. I think take it internal and really show that you appreciated the projects you've already done. So even if they're all hypothetical, let's say you're in college, you've never had a real project,
Yeah.
do a respect those projects a lot and show the respect, right? Like show that you can do a case study, show that you can really dive into a problem and solve it. It's having this empathy for the project itself then. Because I know if I look at like a young designer, if let's say I have two young designers in front of me, their portfolios in front of me, and neither of them have real client work, the one that's going to win is the one that celebrates the process more, the one that shows me and actually you can see enjoys it. And then because the one that does it and is like, I'm on to the next thing, I'm on to the next
Yeah.
project, I'm going to do better stuff than this. How do I not know you're not going to do that for my project? I'm going to give you a project and you're immediately going to be like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to do something better than this. Like, no, I'm already looking at how you're going to be. So if you're in college right now or you're in a high school and you're listening to this podcast, I think you definitely need to already think about your projects this way. Show the love, show that you care about it. Like really put the fine weird details into it because those do matter. I do want to see those. I want to see the sketches. I want to see that you care about it.
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Now I'm like just thinking out freelancers basically like people with committing issues, you know, because like on the one side it's like you want to have the freedom to pick and choose your clients, you know. On the other side, you should be like very committed to your clients and do all those things, you know.
Right.
Or should you see yourself as a freelancer more as like a business, you know? As your own entity, because like that would be then more healthy, because then you can do the long-term relationship with the client where it's like, okay, I'm really committed to this client, you know, I'm not talking bad about the ex client, I'm celebrating you right now as it is, you know, and I don't think about the bad, you know, and I focus on the good. And but also on the other side is like why you don't work then as a full-time employee for that person. You know what I mean? It's like it's a weird area where it's like we as a freelancer, you know, we're all creatives, but we're either freelancers, full-time employees, or like artists, you know? It's like kind of interesting to see can you be a full-time employee as a freelancer in a way, if that makes sense?
Oh, 100%. Because you are for your own company. I think it's like
Yeah.
it's using the word freelancer that gives it kind of a weird vibe. It makes you feel like even just saying the
Yeah,
word
one and
freelancer.
gone, you know?
It makes you sound like you're a guy in a carpet bag going door to door trying to sell your stuff, and you're just going town to
My
town.
vacuum.
Yeah, you're just a hobo on the trains with all the rest of us creatives, And I think like really the way I think of it is we're all in a village, right? You're the blacksmith. You do one thing, you own all of your stuff in the blacksmith shop or whatever. You own all that, and you help everybody in the town with whatever they need from you, and they help you too. And I think it's like when I go to a networking events. Yesterday I went to two networking events, right? And
Yeah.
I sometimes don't get hot leads from events. And I think people get really mad when they go to like a networking event and they don't leave with something. They're like, well, I don't have anything new. That must have been a failure. But it's like, well, no, because what you did is you connected with the different people in the village, right? So like if you know a lawyer, you may need that lawyer later. If you know this person that sells insurance, you may need that later. Like
Yeah.
so it's like thinking about things like that in this way that like people are going to come and go, but that's because no one wants to hang out in the blacksmith shop all day. They got other stuff to
Yeah.
go do. So they came, you made the stuff, you helped them out, and they leave, but they're still part of the village. So
Yeah.
that's how I try to think about it. Is it's when you're a freelancer, it's not that you're just being passed around by the people and used. It's more that that they come to you because you do something really well and you help the entire village with that one thing that you provide.
I like that. That's a good analogy that makes me feel good, you know. And you can still
Mm-hmm.
go out with the blacksmith and basically have a beer or whatever, you know, or celebrate a birthday,
Yeah,
you know, and that should be part of it, being in the
exactly.
village.
And I think we all need to start thinking like that because there's so many people I see at these networking events too. Not a lot, but there's people I'll see where they're desperate. They have this weird desperation where they just don't get that you need friends before you do well. You can't
Yeah.
skip that step. We can't all just like trust you and give you stuff before we even know you. We have to know you. That has to be
Yeah.
part of it. So with that being said, I think that we're gonna keep making this podcast, everybody.
Yeah.
So please like, subscribe. We're so happy you're part of our village. So definitely keep trying to expand that village. If you have any guests that you'd like on, feel free to reach out. Things like that. Because we're here to celebrate you people.
Yeah. On that note, do you have any events going on that you want to highlight?
Yeah. So it depends when this episode is going to come out, but
Yeah.
on March 27th, I'm going to be doing a workshop where I'm going to be teaching designing websites for artists and creatives. It's through the St. Petersburg Arts Alliance. There'll be a link in the description to register for that. And I'll be talking about my process a little bit, about what websites are, some hot tips, hot takes, and kind of give some actionable steps for people that are creative and just want to get into making their own website or hiring a web designer. It should be really fun. It's only $10. So if you guys want to watch a Zoom with me getting into the nitty gritty, then it's only $10. Links in the description, and it's just over Zoom. So should be fun.
Love it. Love it. Well, on that note, thanks for watching the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Fitz, and this is.
And I'm Sean, guys. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.